Alright, so this is on its side right now, but it's just a little shelf that I picked up. It's made of plywood, but it's very sturdy. It just had some damage on the bottom, and it's hideous. So what we're going to do is cut off, I've already started because I forgot to start filming, but we're going to cut off the bottom here and add some legs and make it look fancy. So I just used my jigsaw to cut off the bottom part of the shelf. I just want to make sure that I have a flat base to work with because I'm going to just be adding some brackets and some legs to give it a little more height and also just some clearance at the bottom because I feel like it makes it look a little more modern and less like a ratty old shelf. So I am pre-drilling some pilot holes. I just find that that's always a safest practice. And then I'll put in the screws that came with the brackets. I got these off of Amazon. I think they were like $5. The legs I actually found at a thrift store for $3.99. So this piece was free and I essentially only spent money on the legs and the brackets. I was going to sand them and stain them, and then I ended up not liking the stain. So this whole piece was just I was very excited about it first, and then by the end I just was not excited about it anymore, and these pieces always frustrate me. I don't know if that happens to anybody else, but as I'm working on it, I can kind of just feel the inspiration of it slipping away from me. So I wanted to try new techniques on this. I decided to do a solid color, which is not a normal thing for me. I just thought it would be fun to try a solid color, and it's a bright blue, which I love blue, but I don't know. Anyways, it's a lovely blue, it's indigo, and I'm just gonna give the entire piece 2 coats of this. And I do start out with, so the whole piece was prepped. I sanded the whole thing just a little bit because it had like a bit of a shellac base to it. So I do have my Mr. bottle. I make sure that my brush is damp when I very first start, and it just helps the paint glide on. And I'm doing a fairly thin coat for my first coat because it makes a smoother finish. Since this isn't a textured finish, it's not going to be blended or anything like that. If I'm doing a singular color like this and I don't want any texture, I just work with thin paint, and it's almost just so smooth and brush free if you do it that way. It's lovely. So the finish on this actually is great. I just wanted to try a different style and I ended up not liking it. Now you guys are going to be curious what it looks like. So these spots here on the top shelf there, those are just little divots that I had seen in the paint that I didn't like, so I just used some wood filler, and then I'm sanding that down as I'm doing my scuff sand over the base coat. And then on my second coat, all of that will get covered up and you'll never see it. But sometimes I just do touch-ups like that and it works out just fine. You'll see the back is left open. I'm just gonna hit that on the second coat because I'm going to be decoupaging some tissue paper on there, and I only need 1 coat of that. I'm not gonna waste my paint for 2 coats on a color. The tissue paper is going to be a similar color blue, so I only need just the 1 coat of it. And then again, use your Mr. bottle, make sure your paint is relatively thin, and your paint will go on incredibly smooth. And then you can see there, when I'm doing small little shelves like that, or little pieces, I go kind of short, tiny strokes, and then I smooth everything out with really long strokes to make sure it's just super clean. So this is the tissue paper I decided on. I wanted this piece to be blue and gold. And I had this tissue paper and I was very excited about using it. I ended up not loving it, which is upsetting. So it was just too large of a surface area and the dots are too particular. So any missed line up on them at all, you can totally see it, and like bothered my eye. My friend saw it and she's like, no, it's not a big deal. But for me, just if anything is not exactly right when it's so symmetrical and so, I don't know, it needed to be perfect. And if you've seen my other stuff, I don't like working in perfection. I like to embrace the imperfections of things because I feel like it, you know, kind of brings out the age of the piece and goes along. But with this style that I was trying to do, I felt like everything needed to be perfect and it just wasn't being perfect for me. And it just made me upset. So, I don't know. Is this just a disappointing video? I'm really sorry if it is. I just want you to know that there is like failure pieces that I have too, where it turned out fine. There's nothing innately wrong with it. It's all okay, but I just wasn't happy with it along the process. And I'm usually so excited throughout the entire process. And this one I was just like, man, I wanted to try a new style and this is just not my style, which is great because now I know I'm not going to do, this is more of like a modern kind of piece. So as you can see, I did like a geometric design on top and I'm doing it with gold leaf, which is a great technique. I love this. So I just take a little bit of poly, I lay it down, and then you want to let it get just a little bit tacky before you start using your gold leaf. Also, gold leaf is very messy, so if you don't like messes, this is not the application for you. But it's beautiful and it does a great job. This part turned out amazing. Overall, the whole thing, I mean, it looks fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just not my style. And I should have known better, but you know, I just wanted to try a new style. So as you can see, I've got my tape lines out. It's only going to be gold leafed over here, over any of the blank spots. You do absolutely, I know I've already said this, but you need to wait till the poly is tacky or else it will just lift and create a big mess. You can also use the sizing medium that comes with a lot of the gold leafing sheets. You can use a lot of stuff. I just really like poly because I feel like it's the finish that I'm going to end up using and I like everything to be really cohesive. So I have two brushes that I'm working with. I have one that's just doing the poly and I'm working in small sections. You see, I'm not doing the entire piece. But I am ripping the tape off when it's still pretty wet. And I'm okay that it gets a little bit jagged. It's a very clean line, but it's still jagged because of the gold leaf, because it does tear out some of the gold leaf, which is what I was going for. And then you can also, once everything's dry, you'll see I'm working with a dry brush too. That's the dry brush. And it kind of dusts everything off. So you do need two brushes when you're doing this. These are just chip brushes. They're very gentle because there's not a lot of bristles in them. And then I did kind of an asymmetrical gold leafing on the front of all the shelves. And then I sealed over the entire piece with satin poly. Again, it's a very smooth finished piece. It's very clean. It has nice lines. And it's just not my aesthetic. There's a couple changes I did make that I didn't film because I was just so frustrated with the way that it was coming out. It was just too plain for me, I think. So I did add some tile stenciling to the background to cover up the not perfect lineup in the tissue paper. And then I also gold leafed the legs, which that made me happy. I just really like gold leaf. So those are some changes that you'll see in the finished pictures. I think it looks fine. There's nothing wrong with the piece. Like I said, it's not my aesthetic. It's all right. This piece, however, has not sold yet, which is kind of a bummer because my stuff usually sells within a week, usually within the first couple of days that I post it. So I'll keep you guys updated, probably in the description down below, but hopefully it'll sell by next week.